Every day when my alarm goes off at 2 a.m, I jump straight out of bed and into an ice bath to do 3 hours of meditation. As soon as I'm done with that, I jump into my oversized sauna and do a 2-hour full body workout in the heat. And then I go for a run and read books while staring into the sun. I also fast for 23 hours a day and don't drink any caffeine. Well, in case you can't tell, I'm obviously joking. But how you start your day can really set you up for a lot of success. And there's a lot of different conflicting information out there and a lot of different ideas. Now, there's merit in probably a lot of them. But here's the thing, your morning routine can really be the thing that sets your day up for success. Now, there's lots of different ideas out there, and you might have heard about things like going monk mode at the moment. Lots of people trying different things to try and optimize the way they start their day. So what I'm going to share with you in this video is some of the reasons that creating a morning ritual can really set you up for success. Plus, I'm going to share with you some of the things that I do personally that have benefited me greatly. And I'm going to share with you some of the learnings that I've had along a process of trying to optimize my day for success as well. So if you're ready to optimize your mornings and take control of your productivity, keep watching. So first things first, why even bother having a morning routine? Now, I can remember when I would just wake up with no real plan and go and make some breakfast and kind of like stumble into the day to see what the day had in store for me. But that was back when I was a lot less successful than I am now. One of the things that is a characteristic trait of all of the most successful people is that they have routines, habits, rituals, and structure. And usually, not always, but usually that starts at the start of the day. Now, there are some outliers out there who say, I don't have anything planned in the morning and all of this morning routine stuff is rubbish, but they are the minority and not the majority. So if you want to become more successful in your own life, I suggest that you start to lean into what works for most people. In fact, one of the stories that I love about this is Tony Robbins, who you may be familiar with. He actually jumps into an ice bath every morning. I know I joked about that at the start, but that's actually a thing that he actually does. Now, he's said that he's done it every single day for however many years, and every single day he never wants to do it. There's never been a single day that he says this is going to be great, but he does it anyway because the act of him taking control of his mind and his day and his state helps him to stay in charge over his emotions and everything else that happens throughout the rest of his day. So this is actually a really important factor when you're thinking about how do I start to take charge and then take control, get more done, become more successful, become happier, and live the life that I want today. What I want to do right now is I want to talk to you about how I start my day every day. Now, first things first, I typically get up at about 4 a.m. Now, that can seem a little crazy to some people because they're like, what? I currently get up like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So here's how I manage that. So first things first, I always try to make sure I get a decent amount of sleep. So what that means in a real sense is I'm actually going to bed at like 8:30 p.m. or 9 p.m. at night. Often I'll go to bed at 8:30, go to sleep at about 9 o'clock. Now, I'm a deep sleeper, and so I actually get pretty good rest during that period of time, but I always make sure I'm optimizing for my sleep. This is not, getting up at 4 a.m. does not mean that you go to bed at midnight. You want to try and get at least 6, preferably 8 hours of sleep, depending on what your sleep cycle is like. Now, as I mentioned, I'm quite a deep sleeper, so I actually get a lot of deep sleep and a lot of REM sleep, so I can actually function completely effectively for extremely long periods of time on only 6 hours of sleep a night, which is not normal. Most people need 8. Now, what I try to do though, is I try to optimize for 8 hours of solid sleep, because what actually happens through everyone's sleep pattern is you wake up throughout the night. So what I'm actually trying to optimize for is not from a total hours perspective, like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but if I can optimize for say 7 hours of sleep time, I'm more likely to get enough of the quality sleep that I need in that period of time. Now, I know there's a lot of research out there that says don't drink caffeine in the first like 90 minutes of waking up. And that research is probably bang on. And there's probably heaps of really good reasons that what I do next is not the best idea. But let me tell you, it works for me. The very first thing that I do after I get up, and of course, go to the bathroom and do all these kind of normal things that people do, I go to the coffee machine. At home, we have an espresso machine. I love it, but hey, we travel a lot as well. We don't always have that luxury. But the first thing I do is always make sure I have the capability to make a cup of coffee. Now, I want to clarify something here. I don't wake up in some kind of brain fog where I'm like, oh my God, I can't operate until I get some caffeine. That is not the case at all. And in fact, I've tested it out to make sure that what I'm saying is true. I'm totally fine to just wake up and start doing my routines without having the caffeine. However, because I've developed such strong habits, I actually enjoy this part of my day. It helps me to set the train in motion around a whole bunch of other things that I like to do, and it's part of my routine. I enjoy it, and if you know anything about my story, you'll know that once upon a time, I was actually an alcoholic, a drug addict, addicted to all kinds of things, and so from my perspective, this is my one last little thing, and I'm not ready to give it up yet. So now I would recommend, and there's a lot of science around this as well, I would recommend recommend not eating anything for the first 60 minutes to 120 minutes of the day. Now, a lot of people do fasting and all of that kind of stuff. Great, awesome, love it, done that before as well, big fan, but I don't do it all of the time. But something that you want to start bringing into your routine is to avoid food for the first hour or two of the day at least, because that is actually going to give you time to start processing all kinds of other stuff and start to wake up before you start loading it up with calories. So if you are going to have a coffee first thing in the morning, make sure you try and do it without sugar and without milk. So you're reducing the amount of calories you're putting in your body from the get-go. It means your body's not trying to waste time digesting and starting to burn calories doing that kind of stuff, so you can get more focus and more clarity. Now, the very next thing I do after I've made a cup of coffee is I sit down and I write. Now, a lot of people think about journaling and stuff, and they're like, think about it as like some kind of like dear diary, yesterday I did this, or whatever the case may be. That is not how I think about it. And in fact, I'm going to use some slightly different terminology, but I'm going to explain it in just the same way. So I take a pen and paper every single day and I write. This happens in the very first part of the day. So I've woken up, I've gone and taken care of all the normal bodily stuff, then I've gone and made a cup of coffee, and then I sit down with a pen and paper. Now, almost every single day, I write out my vision, which is about 1 page of my notebook, and I write out my vision. Now, I'm going to talk to you specifically about how I do this, because this can be really, really important and valuable to you. In fact, this was one of the things that has had the biggest impact on creating the life that I currently have today. That is about journaling your vision every single day. Now, the function of doing it with a pen and paper, as opposed to reading it on an iPad or just reading it, is you have a mind-body connection when you're actually taking your thoughts, moving them through your physiology and transferring them into reality. Now, there's a psycho-cybernetic approach in there which actually helps to make the words that you're writing down far more impactful. I'm certain and I'm confident that if you start doing this every day, you're actually going to remember this stuff a lot more than if you just wrote it once and read it every single day. So when you write out your vision of your life, you want to talk about what you want out of life in the present tense. Now, this can be a little bit tricky to get your head around. So I'm going to dig into it a little bit here, and then I'll probably do a whole video specifically on this topic because it's really, really important. The first thing you need to understand is you need to write it down in the present tense, as if you already have it or as if it already exists. So if you, for example, aren't in a relationship and you want to be in a relationship, rather than saying, I want to be in a relationship, or I will get married, or I will find the person of my dreams, these are all future-paced statements which are predicated on this concept that it is something that will happen later on. Whereas if you wrote down something like, I am in a loving, committed, supportive, and nurturing relationship, now that might not be specifically true in the current today's state of reality. However, you're starting to program your mind for it to be true. And the faster you can do that, the faster you can actually manifest the things that you want in your life. I'm going to do a whole nother video on manifestation because this is a really interesting topic and it's not as woo-woo as it sounds. It's actually really scientific. And I've actually been testing this out for the last, 20 something years to massive effect. And I've been able to create almost everything I want in my life through these processes that I'm sharing with you today. Now, as I mentioned, my vision that I write out every single day is 1 page in my notebook. It's not 9 pages and it's also not, 5 words. That being said, you can actually you can do what works for you. You don't have to have a page of things that you write down. You might have 3 or 4 or 5 and that's it. And that is totally okay as well. The point is you want to get really clear on what you want. Where people go wrong with a lot of this kind of stuff is that their goals are not their own. And what I mean by that is they've been told that what success looks like is a Lamborghini and living in a flash apartment and doing all this kind of stuff because that's what people have seen on the internet. And so you may actually have a desire to be successful. And the reason you may have a desire to be successful is because you want to change the current circumstances that you're in. You may be in a situation where you don't feel happy, where your status is not the way you want it to be. You might not have enough money to do the things you want to do. You might not be able to take care of your family. Whatever the case may be for you, you may have a desire to move to a different level of success. The problem is, until you define what success is for you, you're only ever going to be borrowing somebody else's vision of that future. And when you do that, you run the risk of being misaligned with your values. Now, I'm talking about this because I've done this too. I have done this. This is a mistake that everyone makes. And I want you to know that it is okay to make that mistake. The likelihood of you first writing down a vision of your future that is perfectly aligned with your values and that is the exact thing that you genuinely, deeply in your spirit and your soul want out of life is ridiculously slim. So I want you to know that it is okay for you to get this wrong. What is most important is that you start the process of working it out. Now, if you do this every single day, you're going to do that. Now, just to be clear, my vision changes. And you might be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I thought you had a clear vision of the future. The thing is, we're always changing. We're always growing. We're always testing things out. We're always seeing how things fit. And so every single time I write out my vision, I might change sometimes I don't change anything, but sometimes I may change just one little line in there. Be like, is that really what I want to say? And I might tweak that a little bit. Or I might have something in there like, I'll use the Lamborghini example. I have a red Lamborghini parked in my driveway. Now, I might actually think that doesn't resonate with me. That doesn't feel anything. And you'll know if it means something to you because you'll feel something. So if I find something in there and I'm like, I'm just not sure that is actually the thing that I'm aiming for, then I'll just take it out, or I'll change it, or I'll adapt it. And you've got permission to do that too in your own life, because what's most important is that you go on a journey of discovery to arrive at that place that is going to be the best possible life for you. The very next thing I do is I jump into a bit of work. So I mentioned earlier how you've got far more self-control in the morning and more discipline. And so looking at what the biggest task you've got ahead of you, or just trying to identify what that is, can be a really great way to spend some of that disciplinary energy that you've got in the morning. So I tend to jump into work and I'll either do one of two things. I'll either already know what the biggest thing is that I need to move, the big rock that I've got on my plate, and I'll just get stuck straight into that. Or what I'll do is I will seek to what I call clear the decks. And then what I do from there is I go straight to the gym. So I'm typically at the gym at about 6 a.m. Now, there's a little bit of variability there. I do like to be there at 6 a.m. Sometimes if I'm deep in a bit of work there, it might be 6:15, but it's typically 6 a.m. that I try and get to the gym. Now, if there was a circumstance where I was near a gym that was a good quality gym that was open earlier, I would probably flip this around a little bit and I would probably do the gym first and then do the work straight after the gym. So I'll go to the gym at 6 a.m. I'll typically work out for an hour. Now, when I work out, what I tend to do is I tend to do a mix of resistance exercise, so weights, and a mix of and cardio. Now, I don't believe there is a one-size-fits-all solution to fitness and health. What I genuinely believe is whatever you're going to enjoy and whatever is going to get you moving. Now, as part of my vision of who I am the type of person that exercises for at least 1 hour every day, or an average of 2 hours every day. Now, because I've built that into my identity and I've done that through the morning rituals, through writing out my vision of who I am and who I want to become and all of that kind of stuff, I actually start to build that identity in myself. So now going to the gym isn't some chore that I need to tick off the box. It's part of who I am. So if I don't go to the gym, something's really off. Now, that doesn't mean that I go to the gym and every single time I'm hitting PBs and I'm doing all this kind of stuff. Sometimes I do, and it's great when I do. But sometimes I go to the gym and I'm like, I don't want to be here. I feel tired. I feel I don't enjoy this, but I don't care because it's part of my routine. And so when you build solid routines and rituals, you don't need motivation. You don't need discipline. It's just the thing that you do. It's a binary function. I go, I do the thing, and I leave. Now, of course, sometimes you can show up and you can really push yourself. And sometimes you show up and you go, I'm going to move my body and I'm going to sweat for 1 hour and that's it. That's all I'm going to do. And that's okay too, because if you build these daily rituals, the compound effort of actually doing all of that kind of stuff consistently, even if you're not perfect every single time, is going to be far better than waiting just for the moments where you feel like you've got the right level of motivation or the right level of discipline. Because what is actually interesting about this is that it actually works in reverse. A lot of people think something like, geez, when I've got more energy, I'll go to the gym and I'll get fit. But actually going to the gym is the thing that gives you the energy. So building habits and rituals around integrating this stuff in your life so it becomes a part of who you are, not something that you need to go and do, because something you need to go and do is external. I need to go and mow the lawns. Okay, but if you're someone who mows the lawns, then that's not something you need to go do. Vice versa, this works with going to the gym. And now, again, depending on your goals and what your expectations are and what you're trying to achieve, there's probably better and worse ways to work out. There's lots of pros and cons with doing all kinds of different exercise. But what I would suggest is find the thing that you enjoy most. Now, for me, that is going to the gym. For you, that might be going for a run, or going for a bike ride, or it could even be going for a long walk. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that going for a long walk is going to be almost as good as doing many other kinds of training. Obviously, a balanced approach is going to be really, really important, but I also do that too. So some days I will actually not go to the gym, but I will go for a long 90-minute walk instead, depending on what I've got scheduled for the rest of the day. I typically only do that if I don't have a busy day ahead. But when we go through that process, that can actually be a great way to kind of get into a good mindset and get in touch with nature. But back to the point. So 4 a.m. wake up, go and get a coffee, spend an hour in visualization and thinking time, spend an hour doing some work, and spend an hour at the gym or exercising. That's the first 3 hours of the day. That takes me up to 7 a.m. Now, you've heard me say things about like manifestation and all of this kind of stuff. And so you'd be forgiven for thinking that I'm some kind of like law of attraction, dream it into existence type. And that is not 100% true. So what I tend to do after I'm done at the gym is I pretty much get into work. I will get some food. Either sometimes I'll just have a protein shake and just get straight into work. If I have enough time, I might go and work from a cafe whilst I eat some breakfast. I'll get through some work, solo work where I don't have any meetings whilst I'm eating breakfast in a cafe. Personally, I really enjoy that. That makes me feel like I'm successful. I don't know what it is, but something about going to the gym and then going and sitting in a cafe by myself, ordering the same breakfast every day. I love routine and structure. I also love variety, which is why we travel around the world all the time. But there's something about this moment where I'm in charge and I'm running my business from a cafe, just makes me feel like I'm doing something uniquely successful to me. But that's not a prerequisite. I like it, but it doesn't have to happen every day. I enjoy it when it does happen. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole rest of my day routine, but I will touch on just one little bit. The way that I tend to try and structure my day is that I have no meetings for as late as possible. So sometimes those meetings start at 11 a.m., sometimes at midday, or sometimes after lunch, but I tend to try and protect as much of my morning for myself as possible so that I can focus on deep work. Now, a big part of this as well is about time blocking. You would have heard me say earlier in the video that I block out time in my calendar for thinking time. I block out time for everything. If it is in my calendar, it doesn't happen. Lunch in the calendar, go for a walk in the calendar. All of this kind of stuff is in the calendar. This actually helps me to reduce decision fatigue. Now, I typically plan that on a Sunday because some of you are probably wondering, how do you plan your day? I plan it on a Sunday or on a Saturday or over the weekend. I plan my week ahead and very few things change because I'm in control of how I spend my time. So my advice to you would be to start to take control of this on a regular basis. If you haven't done that, then I would suggest doing that straight after the gym if you're going to follow my routine that I've just mapped out here today, where you could sit down, have your breakfast, and then clearly plan your day before you get into any work. Because the last thing you want to do is run around trying to work out what to do next and making short-term decisions around what's making the most amount of noise. I can tell you that is a recipe for burnout. And so that's it. That's my take on a morning routine. It's worked for me. It's helped me massively. I've optimized it over time, and I hope that it's been valuable to learn from as well. And you can apply some of this kind of stuff in your own life. Now, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, if you want to become more successful, build more wealth, create more freedom in your life, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you don't miss out on the next video. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.